The scene is set for the Miami Grand Prix, the sixth round of the 2025 Formula One Championship, as Ferrari wants to confirm the good things shown at the 6.174-kilometer Jeddah Corniche Circuit with Charles Leclerc 2 weeks ago. Settling for a podium is never acceptable when you are wearing the red of the Prancing Horse. Nevertheless, the historic team is waiting for the aerodynamic update package, which is set to be introduced by the Maranello technicians and engineers in the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix weekend in order to make the necessary step forward, which, if fully achieved, could unlock the potential to return to the fight at the top. That is the goal. But first comes Florida. The Miami International Autodrome is a circuit with a mix of very fast sections, slower ones, and long straights, a combination that will definitely make it difficult to hit the correct operating window of the car. Excluding McLaren, all the top teams seem to be quite dependent on how well their cars can adapt. The gaps are minimal, which means the grid tightens up, and every small detail becomes more than relevant. Behind this risky and possibly sensational-sounding assumption, there are very specific technical reasons. Miami is a track where Ferrari performed well last year, a podium despite being the third strongest team of the weekend, behind Red Bull and McLaren. The expected good adaptation to the American track could allow a smoother approach than at other circuits. This without forgetting that the risk of a short operating window setup-wise is real, a scenario that would force the Maranello team to build what they themselves call extreme setups. The second factor to consider is the temperatures, which in Florida will reach high peaks, with the sun itself contributing to the heating of the track surface. All these conditions could put Red Bull in trouble, as it is currently the car that requires the most work on the setup side. The RB21 does not perform well in excessive heat, as we saw in Bahrain. The same could happen in Florida, to Ferrari's advantage. Difficulties that could be decisive for the Italian team if they can take full advantage. Taking into account that McLaren is a step ahead of everyone, there is also Mercedes to consider, which will most likely be the main rival of the SF-25 in Miami based on data collected so far. However, the thermal management of the W16's tires will be seriously tested. At the Bahrain International Circuit, they managed the compounds well under high temperatures, keeping the rear tire temperatures under control, whereas in Jeddah, the Italian car made progress. Charles Leclerc's SF-25 had better pace than George Russell's W16, and overall, the car from Maranello showed less degradation. This is because the team found a good spot to make the car work, but also thanks to a lower energy demand on the tire compound, helpful in the race but critical on Saturdays. That is why Ferrari worked on tweaking the balance for qualifying to improve single-lap performance. In the American weekend, the German team should not face issues in understanding tire behavior, as the sprint race will allow them to gather accurate data on tire degradation and act accordingly. Compared to last year, when Mercedes put too much stress on the tires and only performed well on cooler tracks, now the situation is reversed, and they have found a more consistent balance. The recent Formula One races have shown us that Ferrari is slowly improving. Cooler conditions like those in Japan helped both Ferrari and Red Bull in tire management. With higher temperatures and a stop-and-go layout like Bahrain, Mercedes stood out. Whereas in Saudi Arabia, with fast corners and straights, it was the Italian side's car that emerged. In Miami, there are long straights where tires cool down, but also fast corners in Sector 1 and slower sections like in Sector 2. For all these reasons, looking at the big picture, everything will undoubtedly depend on the balance Ferrari can find in terms of managing tires thermally. Car setup has proven to be a frighteningly powerful tool in the start of the 2025 F1 campaign, and getting it right is crucial. The Maranello team has worked hard on this, and if everything goes well, they are aiming to be the second-best team at the Miami International Autodrome. Looking beyond the upcoming weekend, Ferrari has set the Spanish Grand Prix as the day of resurrection. Charles Leclerc has bet that the team will have little to lose when the FIA, precisely at the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona, implements stricter checks on front-wing flexibility. All Ferrari fans are hoping for this, but the Maranello technical staff has already granted 9 races advantage to McLaren and Mercedes, the top teams suspected of gaining the most from the programmed movement of flaps. The numbers, after all, are very clear and explain more than many public statements. Compared to the car that finished second in the 2024 Constructors' Championship, the SF-25 has improved by 0.857 seconds, using the best lap from the first 5 races as a benchmark. This figure might have been inflated by the new asphalt in China and Japan, But regardless of the absolute value, the gap among the top teams is what is interesting. But the 0.8 improvement may have been deemed sufficient by Ferrari technical director Leclerc and company to be contenders in both Formula One championships, therefore fueling fan expectations, not created by media, but rather by the Italian side's own united statements before the 2025 Formula One season began. At the end of a regulatory cycle, it is normal to be scraping the barrel and expect differences to reduce as they approach the asymptote. But ground effect cars are still full of surprises, with performance gains that exceed predictions. It should not surprise, then, that Ferrari ranks only 6th in incremental gains, while McLaren is 3rd with an improvement of 1.359 seconds, trailing only Alpine and Williams, who had poor cars last year and thus showed more dramatic improvements compared to those who were already ahead. It is evident that Ferrari struggles in qualifying. There is a 0.492-second gap from McLaren, based on single-lap pace, and the team suffers in races from constantly running in dirty air. The SF-25 single-seater lacks aerodynamic load to set ride heights that don't risk damaging the floor, as happened to Lewis Hamilton in the Chinese Grand Prix, leading to disqualification. The weak point is the rear, which lacks sufficient downforce, making the SF-25 car unstable at the back. Lewis Hamilton struggles with this twitchy rear end that erodes his confidence, while Charles Leclerc has found a way to adapt his front-focused driving style and often performs miracles beyond the car's actual limit. We sincerely hope that the aerodynamic upgrades planned for the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix, part of an aerodynamic update package to be completed at the Circuit de Catalunya in Barcelona, with Monte Carlo in between, will result in real progress. Why has Ferrari's comeback clock been set to the Spanish race and not to the European opener in Imola? The upgrades developed by the Maranello engineers and technicians for the Enzo and Dino Ferrari circuit may not be enough to catch the papaya-colored cars. Will we really have to wait for the FIA to clip the wings of the competition before Ferrari can breathe the air of the podium's top steps again? The belief at Maranello is that McLaren and Mercedes, currently the top two in the Constructors' Championship, are exploiting the existing loopholes. By contrast, Charles Leclerc is confident that Ferrari won't lose much performance. Let's just hope that in the meantime, the others have not already managed to limit the damage. After all, we have already had a regulatory adjustment on rear wings, and the performance order did not change. We are counting on a reactive Ferrari already at the GP of Made in Italy and Emilia Romagna. Frédéric Vasseur's squad came agonizingly close to winning the Constructors' Championship last year, so anything less than the title this term has to be viewed as a failure. That statement arguably applies every season for Ferrari, the most successful team on the Formula One grid.